Hello everyone, I hope your FR papers have gone reasonably well, but irrespective, putting that to rest, it's time to now move on to AFM. Now within AFM, we just have around 1.5 days to make the most, and we will make the most out of it. So the first thing that we need to remember is the kind of coverage that we want to attain. Remember, if you try to total up everything on the best case scenario, you have 1.5 days, so probably post the FR paper, you have close to, let's say, 4 to 5 hours if you sleep by around 11 or 12, and on the next day at the best case you have around 14 hours effectively, and the next day around 5 or 6 hours. So if you go to see anywhere between 25, maybe you can squeeze in an hour or two more, or maybe if you're probably taking more time, maybe an hour or two less. So anywhere between 24 to around 26 to 28 hours is what you have. Let us say on an average we have 25 hours, out of which without doubt we have ignored theory a lot. We need to keep at least 4 to 5. I would keep 5 hours for a reasonably good reading of theory, because in the exam we do expect a 20 mark weightage including MCQs and the main paper. So ensure that you keep a dedicated amount of time for theory, because it is something that if you read before the exam, it kind of sticks to you and it will really be helpful to bank on this theory. It is not linked to as many concepts, it is more of a theoretical part. So ensure that you keep 5 hours. So that leaves us with effectively 20 hours to prepare for our practical part. So let's get that clear out of your mind. And 20 hours is a slightly stretched time to complete everything. So sir, should you leave something? I would not at all recommend that. Ensure that you touch upon every chapter that is there. You should touch upon those chapters. If you are short on time, do at least the important sums, the super 90 sums, whatever it is. Super 90 is the last resort. First you would at least do the important questions. You might have marked them for your last day revision, or you might have seen the file that we earlier shared for the important ones, or irrespective. Ensure that you at least do the important ones. If you do not do a particular concept or a chapter, by default you kind of get a little scared. So ensure that you be a jack of all and don't just try to be a master of around 2 or 3 topics in this particular case. Okay, so how do we prepare for or how do you plan for your preparations? First, I would prefer that after the exams you straight away get on to topics like valuation and mergers. Now these topics would be, sorry, we had some connectivity issue. So we will start with valuation and mergers. Now most of the times these are chapters which are relatively more manageable if you compare it with chapters like foreign exchange and derivatives. So after the exam, just get on to the groove, start with valuation and mergers, target that. Assuming you will have around 5 hours, this is a reasonable amount of time to finish. Maybe valuation might take a little more time and mergers might take a little less time. So you'll start with the security valuation chapter and mergers. Try to finish it today. If you are a late sleeper, then you can squeeze in another chapter, let us say business valuation or so, which is connected to that, and try to complete that in today's time frame. So over here around 3 hours I would say realistically for valuation, and around 2 to 2.5 hours let us say for mergers. Within valuation, you will have some important areas, focus areas, which we have tried to mention over here. So you can just go through those areas. Having said that, try to cover up the entire chapter. So the next day when you wake up, generally that is the point that you are the most fresh, and that is the point where you pick up the most important chapter, that is foreign exchange. So get that out of the way. Do not keep it for the end. Finish foreign exchange. It is the most heavyweight chapter and one of the most important chapters for your preparation. So foreign exchange goes next. The early morning around 3 to 4 hours you will dedicate for foreign exchange. Beyond that you will go to international financial management, which is connected to foreign exchange, and complete that probably in half an hour to an hour. Just try to refer a few detailed problems, the adjustments for working capital, the adjustments for inflation, the adjustments let us say for foreign currency discounted, etc., and that takes care of the foreign exchange part. Next you move on to kind of portfolio, so that is a little more calculative. Derivatives, etc., you can keep for the later part of the day. You move on to the 3 topics which are kind of connected to portfolio. So the section of portfolio, mutual funds and risk management. In risk management you just need to largely focus on the concept of VAR. Will not take more than 15 to 20 minutes in general for covering the entire chapter. Portfolio management might take some time, specific focus on the formulae, understand the formulae, when to apply what depending on what is asked, the process. Another hour to hour and a half for mutual funds, which is largely based on NAV, a few ratios like Turner ratio, Sharpe ratio, etc. And then risk management, for around 15-20 minutes. So that is another section. So this will, you will do a heavier foreign exchange section, then you go to the portfolio section, which is mediocre, and then we go to derivatives. Now there is business valuation as well. So if you have completed business valuation earlier, so be it. Otherwise we will do it at this particular stage, and after that you will go on to derivatives, interest rate, and at the end there is capital budgeting. Remember, capital budgeting have kept slightly at the end because capital budgeting largely will have a lot of calculations per se, like portfolio, a lot of NPV calculations, etc. So if you have lesser time, you can just broadly see what is to be done in sensitivity, what is to be done in NPV using probability approach, and proceed. So you can kind of compress the time over here, which is a little difficult to do for topics like derivatives. So we will keep derivatives and interest rate for around 2.5 to 3 hours, interest rate for hour to hour and a half, and then do capital budgeting. Remember, stick to these timelines properly. You can obviously mold the order in a way that you are more comfortable. Obviously that is on you to customize, but ensure that you kind of remember that you have 20 hours to play with from the descriptive section, not to eat up anywhere into your theory. So ensuring that theory is to be done. I would have personally done the theory just on the day of the exam, so that my practicals are in place where it is linked to concepts and not linked to memory retention, whereas theory is linked to the memory retention. The things that you just see before the exam is a lot more easier to recollect, but you should ensure that you even dedicate a reasonable amount of time. So on the last day I've kept theory only, and then buffer and a quick recap just in case you need slightly more time. So 3 to 4 hours, apt maybe an hour here or there. We have also shared our theory lectures. Important over here would remain securitization, startup finance, corporate policy, and now in today's environment or in the new syllabus, even business valuation. So over here, ensure that you do the theory for these 3-4 topics properly. In general, out of the 4 or 5 descriptive questions, definitely around 2 to 3, that is 50% of them will come from this. The remainder will come from the entire wide syllabus, which is a little difficult to track, but at least these things which are almost certain, you should focus on their theory. It does not mean you leave the other parts, but at least you glance upon from the compiler or whatever source you have studied the theory on. So this kind of will kind of wrap up your AFM. In terms of solving on pen and paper, maybe a problem or two from each chapter if you have marked, and which is a detailed problem, you can try. But otherwise I would just glance through the adjustments. I would just, if required, do some calculations if required on the calculator, but I will not do a lot of pen and paper practice, at least at this stage, because at this point my focus is coverage. I don't want to touch anything new. I don't even need to do any further MCQs. If you have done MCQs, well and good. If you have not done, then also it's absolutely fine. As long as you're good with the descriptive section, your MCQs will fall in place. Do not refer MCQs additionally at this stage. Focus on the descriptive part. Focus on your numerical part, and ensure that you do a full coverage, and this paper will definitely give you 60, 70 or who knows what. But ensure that you study well, and all the very best for preparations. I'll see you soon, hopefully after a very good AFM paper. Bye bye, take care, good luck.